Hey guys, love the show. I'm a fairly new listener, but an old friend and acquaintance of a couple of the members there. And I want to share something interesting in regards to the Fight Club episode that I was listening to the other day. And as I was listening, Enrique shared a story about his fight and being jumped by some football players. I realized something. I was there. I was there in the flesh, and I saw it all unfold. I was walking home with Enrique, and we were at that little market on Ginge, and after school. And anyways, I saw it all go down. So maybe I'll give you guys a call sometime while you're recording, or I'll leave you guys, or I send you guys maybe an audio or something, and hopefully fill in some of the gaps that we're missing there and get some enlightenment to Enrique there. All right, guys, take care.
Enrique?
I'm scared. I feel like my own episode of the Wonder Years, man. I'm like, I remember like how I felt that day when that happened. I remember like the humiliation and the anger and just like the years of resentment. Have you guys ever watched Dazed and Confused, the movie?
Yes.
Is that what you were?
Absolutely. Like I was. What's that line the guy says in the movie? He's we're here to drink beer and kick ass, and it looks like I'm all out of beer. Anyways, no. there's a part in that movie where one of the guys gets punked by that guy who says that line, right?
Was it McConaughey?
All right.
No. And what happens is that so he spends the rest of this little party just like kind of like the guy who got punked spends the rest of the party just kind of walking around being like you can see that he's like really humiliated, and at the end he finally says, you know what, I'm not going to let this contribute to my life of being ineffectual, and all of a sudden he just goes up to the guy and just sucker punches the guy and ultimately gets his ass kicked anyways. But I'll tell you what, like
he went down swinging.
Well, I recognize that feeling because to this day I can honestly say that a lot of my fears of confrontation probably originate from situations like that, in which like something happened, it was out of my control, and I've like spent years just kind of roiling over it in my mind, and the experience of it can't get away from it.
Well, there's something that you missed in that whole scenario. That guy was drinking the entire time, so he was drunk off his butt when he finally punched the guy.
Sure.
So he didn't feel most of it. So he was smarter than most because he was too drunk to feel pain.
Pretty much.
Oh yeah.
But bear with me. We've got a little journey here of narration.
Journey.
We actually have the rest of the story from Mark. So if you want to hear his point of view from what happened,
listening.
If you guys just bear with me for a minute.
Sure, man. Let it happen.
Hang on to their feeling.
All right, here's my recollection of Enrique's story. To begin, Enrique and I were friends back in high school, and we so happened to be walking home together on this particular day. But before that happened, before the actual incident with those football players that came out of nowhere to basically attack Enrique or punk him, something else had happened. And so this other thing that happened was basically outside the market that he had mentioned. And this market was basically on our path, on our way home. It was only a few blocks from the high school. And so while we were there, something had came up. And this was either with a person that we were walking with or that we actually ran across there. And again, this is right after the high school, so it was like everybody was out. And so we were at this corner store, we're outside. And again, I don't remember exactly who this person was. The only person I can think of, and maybe I'll refresh my memory later too, but the person that comes to mind is, his name was Frank, if I can say his name. And he was in high school band with us. And the only reason I remember him is probably because he was probably one of the only most annoying people that I knew at that time. But I remember basically that this person, whoever it was either bullying or harassing Enrique in some way, and I was there. And when this ensued at first, it was like no big deal. It was something small. was almost something trivial. I don't think it was either direct or personal, but it kind of started going that way. We were at a standstill there, and these guys were arguing, and Enrique was holding his ground, and he wasn't the aggressor. He was basically holding his ground against this guy who was kind of trying to either bully him or punk him in some way, but it wasn't anything that was going to get violent or physical. So I knew that everything was fine. All right, whatever. Let's just deal with this and get going. It wasn't getting necessarily heated or anything like that, but there was some harsh words, I would say. So while this is going on, and in the corner, the smaller street had a red light. There was about 2 or 3 vehicles that were stopped at the red light. One of those vehicles happened to have a pickup truck on the open bed on the back. There was about 3 or 4 guys who happened to be football players from the high school. And so I had not noticed them until one of them said, "Hey, leave that guy alone." And I turned to my right, and he's looking basically at Enrique and this other guy having a discussion. And I thought nothing of it, thinking this is really not even this guy's business or anything like that. So I turned back to my left to Enrique and see what was going on. And like I said, it was no big deal, but Enrique had his back to that street, basically just directing his attention to this guy in front of him. Out of nowhere, one of the football players comes out of the pickup truck. I caught only a glimpse as he was getting closer to Enrique, because this guy basically rushed Enrique from the back on his blind side. I don't recall it being, like Enrique said, that where he punched him in the head, but he tackled him. He did a full-on tackle, just like he would in a game. But he clipped him from behind, and it was horrible. I really felt bad for Enrique, and I still feel bad for him. It was completely sucker punched, and there was people around, and all of them were like, "Oh," after seeing what happened. I was completely shocked. I was like, "Hey man, what the fuck?" It's like, what the hell? He turns to me, he's like, "Oh yeah, he shouldn't be punking other people." And I was completely also shocked from everything that was going on. I was like, he didn't punk anybody. At the same time, Enrique's on the floor, and I think, everybody felt bad for Enrique. Nobody really knew what was going on. And I know he was
They still do.
He was hurt, and he gets up, and he also turns to the guy, and he says something like, "Hey, man, what the hell?" And so I turn back to the guy, and he's heading back to the pickup truck where his buddies are laughing away or whatever. And he gets back into the pickup truck, and they take off after that. After that, I don't remember with too much detail what happened. Obviously, whatever happened with this other guy, the guy who walked away, I think he even felt bad. The whole ordeal was nothing at that level. Was not going to escalate to that level. Why this guy came out of nowhere, nobody knows. I think more than likely he wanted to show off in front of his friends, punk somebody for no good reason, but try to make an excuse for it. After that, I remember we basically walked home, couldn't really say anything. What can we do? Honestly, after that we didn't really do anything except just feel bad for him, for Enrique there. I wanted to share that basically it was nothing personal against Enrique, and I think maybe that was one of the things that he had thought about over these years, and it was kind of random. And I don't remember who this other guy was either. This other altercation, this other discussion that was going on. I know it was there though. So I know something else has happened before that. And those football players came in out of nowhere, supposedly defending this other guy. I guess it seemed Enrique was punking this other guy, but in reality, it was actually kind of the opposite. Although, like I said, it wasn't really punking Enrique. Enrique was holding his ground and everything was cool. But anyways, just want to share that with you guys. And again, love the show. I enjoy it.
Ouch.
All right. You know what? Okay. I was a skinny little dude. And you know what? Like, I completely...
And I know Frank. He was a big fat ass.
Oh,
yeah.
dude. Frank is an asshole, dude. You know what? I completely edit that
Hey,
part
Frank,
out.
you're an asshole.
Oh, he still is an asshole.
Yeah.
Oh, I've seen him over the years, like at the different reunions. He has gotten worse. You remember Frank?
Well, that's what I said. He's an asshole. I'm not. I mean
Yeah. Oh, dude. But anyways,
he looks like he smells like my balls.
well, you know what? Because he does smell like your balls.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so here's the thing about Frank. Like, Frank was like that guy who wanted to be with the cool kids, and ultimately it happened. Ultimately, it happened because, like, at the reunions, he hangs out with all the football players, right? Anyways, look, the fact is this:
Frank looks like he would be part of Latinos for Trump.
Actually, you know what?
Yeah.
You know what's hilarious?
But where is Frank now?
In my balls.
No, I mean, really, like, what is he doing?
Oh, I don't know.
He wanted to be with the cool kids.
The entire time that I was playing, George was laughing so hard I couldn't help but to laugh. Enrique, I swear I was not laughing at you. I was laughing at George laughing so hard because he's a jerk.
Okay, so if I understand the story correctly, it was Frank that you were initially arguing with?
Yeah.
How bad was that sucker punch that Frank felt bad?
It was bad, dude. Like, I mean, here's the thing. I completely forgot about the Frank part, but now that I've heard it, oh, shit, it's all coming back to me.
You know what?
Blood is boiling.
The thing is that Frank, like, okay, dude.
You're as red right now as Stephanie's hair. That's how you are. How red you are right now.
Okay.
Enrique, would it make you feel better if we, like, went to your reunion and sucker punch Frank?
You know, that would be pretty cool. Yeah, go ahead. No, so here's the thing. What happened?
I'll do that even without defending Enrique. I'll just do it.
Okay, so you remember Frank in the band room? He was a dick.
Yeah.
Like, and him and a bunch of the guys used to like do all these pranks. Do you remember that story I told you about the time where I'm walking out of the band room and somebody like just straight up hits me with like a thick ass U.S. history book in the back of my head?
I thought you were going to say like a folding chair.
No, dude. I wish it was like WWE, but no. It was like somebody was standing on a chair, as you know when you walk out the steps, right? Yeah. And that fool just straight up like did this like think Bonk's Revenge, dude. We're like
oh my god,
dude, they just straight sliced onto my head.
That
hit me
like
so hard as I'm like stepping down the steps. I'm like I blank out for a second. I'm pretty certain I got a concussion.
And he never recovered.
You hear this, Frank? Frank, we're coming for you, you son of a gun.
I wouldn't be surprised if like
say it.
You made our Enrique mentally challenged.
Yeah.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you.
It will be Javier's revenge.
There you go.
My child.
Inigo Montoya.
He will probably.
You can cuss my father.
You can cuss
like
my
punches
father.
him in the face.
My name is Javier Montoya. I can cuss my father.
You should definitely teach him. See,
awesome.
This is why bullying exists. It's called payback. If I teach my kids to bully the people who bullied me's kids, you know what I'm saying? It's just fair. It's just fair. Return on investment. That's what I call it. You invested in
I concur. This explains a lot about our child now because he keeps having issues at school. So, because he's way too headstrong, way too intelligent, and does not let people pick on him. He will.
Yeah, it's that trauma from Enrique.
He heard that story and he said, "Not me."
When I was little, I was actually I would fight a lot, and I don't know, man. Like as I got older, that sort of left me. I don't do the whole fighting thing like I used to. In fact, I avoid conflict whenever possible. Although that's not to say that if somebody steps up at me, I'm not gonna do my part in that. But it's not. I recognize that there's like a bit of that fire gone over the years. Like I can't recall the last time I was like that scrappy. Probably since maybe my 20s.
Scrappy.
Dude, I was because I mean everything that he just described, it all brought that shit back to me because Frank was being like Frank was always this big fucking fat ass bigger kid than all of us, so he would try to pick on the younger ones because remember Frank was a junior and I was a sophomore, so and I was skinny and small and he thought that he was gonna like mess around with me, but I was standing up to him and then all of a sudden that fool comes and just tackles me. I mean, dude, that also happened to me when I was a kid. Did I tell you about the time like where I was like in the 8th grade and when I was in the 8th grade and like I was like in a fight with some kid out on the street and all of a sudden this other kid just steps him and taps him on the shoulder. Hey, can I get in on that? And then he starts punching me. Did I tell you that story?
No, but it's because you have a punchable face.
I guess I do.
Anybody else think that Enrique regressed his 8th grade like vocabulary just a little bit ago?
Just a little bit.
A fat fucking.
I thought it was Cartman for a minute.
So wait, was it high school or 8th grade? It was high school, right?
Two different. I'm talking about two different incidences. The time that I said it, what I said was that it happened. This happened to me twice. Where in the 8th grade, some kid like did the same thing, just tapped the shoulder and say, "Hey, can I get in on that?" And then the high school one, I'm literally I'm literally getting into like an argument with Frank, and then some fucking asshole just like sucker punches me from like the side or tackles me.
Enrique, you got to leave these handicap matches alone. This is not fair.
He was just jealous. You were very handsome in high school.
Yeah. I was very skinny.
I went to high school with him.
He was handsome. He was.
So tell me more about this injury. Did it fuck up your face too?
This episode of Ouchcast is called Ouch Therapy with Enrique and...
No. In your defense, I also had a bully. I never got to that part. He was also a football player. I don't know if you remember him. He was Massa. Do you remember Massa?
Oh, fuck yeah, I remember that
That guy was a douchebag. And, it took me years to realize that...
Your school sucked.
Dude, my school did suck.
All schools suck.
It was such a cliche of everything you saw from 90s movies. The football bullies, the band geeks, the nerd. It was so cliche. Seriously, all you had to have in the background is, I don't want to wait for it all to be over.
Oh wow, that was the soundtrack for your school.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's all you needed.
You could have done the Chumbawamba song, man.
Yeah, man.
Okay, that's
all your 90s references, and that's the one you go with.
That's the one I went with. I could have gone with anything, dude. I get knocked down, and I get up again. But
the fact that you went to Dawson's.
I'm just,
But
are you the Dawson man?
No, I'm Rachel.
No, you know what you could do? Do you remember from the movie White Chicks? Remember that? And I miss you.
That song is a national treasure.
Stop adding to the list, goddammit.
This is getting too long. All right, so just to bring it all to a more cohesive conversation, what I find interesting about this is as far as the way I remembered it and what I experienced, and now hearing a narrative from a different perspective, just bringing it all back, it makes me think of as far as my experience, my conscious experience versus my physical experience. What would we say is consciousness? Oh gosh. Okay, I'm looking at it. That's me in 7th grade. Oh,
it all makes sense now.
You were in 8th grade.
What was that medallion?
Enrique, if I would have seen you wearing that, I would have jumped in the same way. Sorry. What the heck? Send me that.
That wasn't in 8th grade.
Please send me that right now.
That was in 7th grade.
And then share it to the chat.
Yeah.
The thing is, if you remember, Stephanie,
then I would have been a 6th grader, and I was not a 6th grader.
You were 1 grade below me, and then you ended up going to middle school in Downey. Remember?
Yes, but I went in 8th grade, so therefore that was 7th grade for me. You were an 8th grader. You were the cool one.
That's sad. So wait, you knew him way back then?
I did.
We were
best friends. He dated my best friend, and I think he had a crush on me back then because he really liked Tiffany. Back then Tiffany was singing.
I think I'm alone now.
Yeah.
There's only 2 of me,
so
just
he had a little crush on me, but he dated my best friend, so of course you can't do that. Bros before hoes. So we didn't hook up until way later.
You got it when she was drunk.
We're still great friends.
So when did this episode become my yearbook? I thought we were going to be talking about consciousness.
Enrique.
I want to turn my brain off now. May I? Can I?
This is your life.
Yeah, you know what?
Do you remember this voice? No, I was kidding.
Yeah,
Enrique.
Suck my vinegary balls there, Angel, okay?
Enrique, so in this whole scenario, did you actually lose consciousness when all this went down?
I'm losing consciousness now. I am actively turning off a part of my brain in which I can just boop. Elon Musk is calling for an end to AI. I'm like, can
call it an end to this
episode? Can I shut my brain down off too? Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I think for a second I might have when he tackled me, he hit me from the side really hard, and I hit the floor hard. So I remember
the bodies at the floor. The bodies. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm gonna demonetize your ass, bro. So, anyways, yeah. So there's a brief second where I don't remember the second that he hit me to the point when I hit the floor, because I remember just looking up and just thinking what the fuck just happened, because it came there's this
young man, you got knocked the fuck out.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And there's just this I think I'm fusing the moment where they drive up and get off the truck to a moment where he jumps on his truck and takes off. You know, like that little gap in your brain where you just sort of like fill in the blanks. I think that's what I'm doing. I'm filling in the blanks in which, like, I'm remembering when this guy gets on the truck and takes off. But in my head, I'm thinking I saw him when he got off that. And I guess I didn't. But here's the thing, though. Like, I mean, maybe I did. I mean, as far as you were asking about consciousness and whether I lost it or not, but I think that like consciousness in general is like is two processes. One is like your what you perceive with your eyes and also what you feel. And I think that like, I was actively scanning the area. Mind you, it was a heightened moment of adrenaline. It was a heightened moment of like fear. And so like I think it's not, like there's like almost like a flash of everything around you. And I'm not saying that's a perfect like picture of what happened, but I think in my mind as I'm hearing the story more, I can see almost like this weird 3D kind of still of that whole moment.
I don't know why I feel like you're describing the 300 movie. There was a heightened sense of things.
You know what? That's so funny that you say that because it was. You know, remember that scene where he says, "This is Sparta," and he kicks him, and all of a sudden you see like this 3D shot in slow motion. That's exactly what I'm describing, by the way.
So, you said it's like what you see and what you feel. Is that our definition of consciousness? Like, what is consciousness?
That's what I was going to get to. I was going to ask that question. What is exactly is consciousness?
Well, what do you think is consciousness?
Being awake.
Okay.
In this terrible, horrible life, living every moment, going, oh God, here we go again.
Life is beautiful.
I Googled it. I believe it's to be awake and to be aware of your surroundings.
Okay, so then
what she said.
What's a dream?
Death.
What's a dream?
Yeah, because we perceive things that we interact with in our dreams. Have you ever sweated in a dream? Have you ever had like a scratch or something? Like you ever feel pain?
You're asking, have you ever sweat in a dream, or have you ever had a dream that made you sweat physically?
Either or.
Because
that was the question I had.
Yes to both.
Yeah, like like you're in the dream, you're sweating, and then you wake up, and then look, oh, I'm sweating.
I've been
supposed to
attacked in my dream, and I felt like I felt those things happening. But then obviously I wake up and my heart's racing like if it was actually happening.
Interesting.
That's probably your wife smacking you while you're asleep, and then pretending to be asleep.
This is pre-marriage.
Oh, okay.
That's the question, because when we talk about like consciousness, yeah, it's easy to say it's like the reality of when you're awake, right? But there are other things that influence alleged consciousness. Memories are considered part of your consciousness. And there's some interesting articles where scientists have recently been able to reproduce false memories in animals. And then they wake, obviously when they bring them back to consciousness, then they now perceive those false memories. So the question is what is consciousness?
Okay, so
it's a chain code.
The thing about consciousness is that, I mean, the definition has changed over the years, right? I mean, you can have like the philosophical, you can have the religious definition, and over the years, like no scientist was really touching the actual study of it. Oh, dude, scientists absolutely touch you because you look like you're like so gay for beakers. There he goes again. There he goes right around the microphone. You sick bastard.
I'm way better at that than you.
Redhead.
So, anyways, Angel, like, if you cannot derail this conversation, I will not have it. I will not.
I'm not. I'm just trying to entertain myself.
Human beings are biological computers. Have you not figured this out yet?
Oh, jeez. All right. So,
programmed by the great
here's the thing. Like, okay, so here's an interesting anecdote that I came across. Okay, so there was this lady who had a stroke. And so left part of her brain just completely shut down. And so they did some studies with her where they were trying to get her to look at these different pictures and have her pick out which was the more preferable situation. So, for example, they showed her a picture of a house. They showed her the same picture of the house, but the left side was on fire. And they asked her, okay, so which house would you want to live on? Want to live in? Now, keep in mind that her left side of her brain and the left side of her face was like numb. She couldn't see anything. She couldn't see it. But she constantly was pointing at the correct picture of the house. She did the same thing for a city. She did the same thing for like a dog. Which dog would you want? And one was like the left side was a diseased dog that was like mangy, and another one was a dog that looked really same dog, but it was looking really nice. There was all these different examples, but each time she picked the one that was the more favorable looking one. Now, when they would ask her, they would ask her, what do you notice about a difference in this picture? She said, nothing. They're the same. But for some reason, she kept on picking that. So what is the takeaway from that? The takeaway was that while she wasn't able to perceive the stuff from her left-hand side, her consciousness, at least her perception of the thing, was still being picked up what she saw around. So she knew on some base level that the thing on the left was the least favorable one. You don't want to live in a house that's on fire. You don't want to have a dog that has mange, right? So she knew that on some instinctual level. So, like, the overall wrap up of that is that, like, at least from a scientific perspective, was they did this with several other different people who had similar afflictions, and what they found was that, generally speaking, people they inhabit the world, but they not only inhabit it, but they also perceive it and understand it on different levels. That's what consciousness is. So when Angel sits there at home watching TV and he's falling asleep, it's true that he says, well, I'm just closing my eyes to rest my eyes. In fact, he's actually taking in the things around. So for all you lazy asses out there, and your girlfriend's telling you, hey, are you paying attention? You know what? You are. You just, paying attention.
I am very attentive.
Okay,
I am
but
very attentive.
In that regard, that's not necessarily what we're perceiving with our eyes. So that goes against that first definition, which takes me a little bit deeper, because if you can perceive things, there's those stories of like people who are in comas who can recall things that were said when they're unconscious. So in a sense, what is our consciousness? There's also those people who like have had lucid dreams or out of body experiences who can completely recall things that are happening in other places, that they vividly say they see those things, but their bodies are clearly being monitored by nurses and doctors and machines, and they're completely unconscious, but somehow they have recollection of memory of details of things that they were not in the same room of. So you
mean like out of body experiences?
Yeah.
Like that?
So, I mean, can you say that consciousness is just what's in front of you, if that's the case? Or is consciousness something, because Enrique just said we perceive things on a deeper level. So what if it's a deeper level of something we don't even completely understand?
Well, what if we go more basic and just say, if part of the definition is to be aware of your surroundings, I mean, you can have your eyes closed and be aware of your surroundings. So maybe someone who's in, per se, a coma, I mean, they can still hear, right?
Yeah.
If they're still...
And maybe their brain was like filling in the gaps and trying to process everything with the limited data that they have.
I would think that's possible, and that makes sense. But there was this incredible story about this little girl who was in a coma, and she had an out-of-body experience, and she was in the next room, like 2 rooms down, basically, and she was listening to what the doctors were telling this lady. And then so she woke up from her coma, and they asked her, where were you? What happened? Do you remember anything? And she was in detail explaining what happened 2 rooms down. And they brought those doctors in, and the doctor was like, that was my conversation with patient XYZ, blah, 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 blah. And so there's this.
They have a very gossipy nurse.
They probably do.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, very gossipy. Did you hear what Dr. Watson said to her?
But, I mean, it's a hospital. You've seen Grey's Anatomy. You know how this goes.
Yeah,
then some sex in the closet. You know what I'm saying? Something happened.
Okay, I work in healthcare. I don't know that it's quite like Grey's Anatomy.
I said...
That's my only reference to hospitals. So
mine stopped with Scrubs. So
Scrubs is a great show.
So I think that, like, for example, the discussion of consciousness, I think, really falls into the idea of like what is perception versus awareness, right? Perception is like I would say that perception tends to be an internal state. It's something that your body recognizes. It's something that you like feel out with your senses. Versus awareness, it's something that you can like sense externally, and then you can broadcast it to everybody. So, like, for example, if we're getting into a political discussion, right? We obviously we're not discussing facts, even though we may be, but what we're really talking about is feelings and perception versus what you're aware to be, truth or not truth. I know, like, I had a discussion recently with another friend she's very spiritual, and she has a completely different idea of what consciousness is. For her, it's all like this religious experience, this thing about like gems, crystals, and astrology and all that bullshit. I'm not with any of that. Like, but for them, that's the
Enrique view. Are 100% accurate. Go on.
Well, good. I'm glad you agree there. What would you know?
I was going to ask, what is your perception of death? Is it like just a cease of consciousness?
Heaven. Joy.
What is my perception of death? Oh gosh, it's a scary thought because I've had these existential moments.
Too far for me.
I have these existential moments where I think like, oh man, is this it? Is this all that's left now? And that's when religion becomes attractive, because then you start thinking religion promises you this like life after death. This is just a starting point. But like, you know, when you hear science, when you hear from science and stuff, like if death is, this is it. This is all you have. And once you're done with this life, that's it. It's what you leave behind, and then you move on.
Here's a terrifying thought for all the atheists out there, and you think that once you die, that's it. What if you're just conscious in your body and your body doesn't move? And you're just there, and you can't move, but you just know.
I would say that nowadays it would not be likely that you would be buried alive.
That's why I'm getting cremated.
But you're not alive. You're dead. It's just you're conscious that you're dead and you can't move, and that's it. That's for eternity.
He means like what if we die, but our consciousness continues?
Functioning?
So even though everything else is dead and you're nothing,
I believe
and so you're like, oh shit.
I think they did prove that your brain actually is the last organ to.
Yeah.
Dang, that'd be messed up.
You will be aware, I'm sure.
You're at your own funeral hearing everybody. You're like, no, please. No, I always think like that because I guess
you're dark.
That's racist. What's that got to do with anything?
That's ignorant.
No, I always think of like, our concept of heaven and consciousness is like the soul. So the soul is alive. The soul is what animates the body. And so
according to religion.
Yes.
Not religion.
It's not religion.
Continue.
The word religion is a bad word because
according to faith, continue.
Sure. Okay. But the point is that the soul is supposed to animate the body. So the body in its consciousness, its awareness is coming from the soul. It's not actually coming from the body itself because, there are deficiencies and things like that don't match up with everybody. But for some reason, we all still seem to have some sort of consciousness. Mm-hmm. And so even if your body isn't 100% accurate, your soul would still be intact. So your soul is just occupying a deficient body. So your soul going to heaven is the concept that us believers call going to heaven. And so that's how you live forever, is that your soul is in a place of paradise forever, not your physical body. And so that's what in the Bible, they call it the first death. Your physical body dies, but your spiritual body continues on forever.
I see no proof.
Energy. Science calls it energy. You can call it whatever you want, but like you would return to the source.
Electrolytes.
Okay, sure. Gatorade is not heaven. Which brings me to this interesting conspiracy that is out there.
Okay.
So this is actually something part of the CIA.
Oh, they're watching. They're
this
listening.
was declassified through.
Okay, go on.
They're here.
I had to
They're
clear
listening.
I had to clear the room.
Recording.
They're listening. They know your balls smell like vinegar.
George, put your penis away.
Gross. Move in.
Oh God. So CIA.
Okay, so the CIA through the Freedom of Information Act, they declassified some documents, and the CIA have this process called the Gateway. And so the Gateway is in a nutshell.
Used to get on the internet.
No,
okay.
negative. So apparently, they know that there is ascension and out-of-body experiences that can lead you to a higher plane of consciousness. There was a colonel in the Army who conducted these experiments with the help of scientists on these people, and these people were able to ascend through what they call the gateway to this higher level of consciousness. And it's very similar to like a lot of like the New Age stuff and a lot of these New Age practices. But this is a 100% like government funded CIA program that they have results for, and they have replicable results. And so what do you guys think about that?
What's that?
I think there was a lot of programs that were government or CIA that had to do with things like that, right? Where they're trying to somehow...
Yeah, they had some out-of-body stuff where they had people in a room trying to, like, assassinate someone through the ethereal realm or something, and they had all these different cookie. I mean, at least it's said that they've tried all these experiences where they try to have people be spies, like aura spies,
remote viewing.
Remote viewing. Yes, thank you. That's the word. Remote viewing.
So some of these things are exactly the same terms that we find in the New Age, but these are also premises that we lead into with certain sciences, like CERN. They believe that there is another dimension that they can access through CERN, and they know about this dimension through...
I've seen Stranger Things. They shouldn't do that.
I've seen Stranger Things, too, and I think it's the stupidest thing that they could ever do. It never works when you open a portal to another world.
Yeah,
What's the other one?
Stargate.
Cloverleaf Paradox?
That leads you back to Jack Parsons.
Yeah.
And the Babylon Rising freaking project that he had.
Precisely. Because Jack Parsons, obviously
I love that band. Oh,
doom,
I thought it was...
doom, doom.
I was going to say, I love Stargate.
Yeah.
So these things are all like...
Confession, I've only seen Stargate the movie. I haven't seen the series.
I will refuse to watch the series.
Go on.
So
I've
good.
watched
Is it?
all the series. Well,
Is there any good?
except for the last one that they did,
Atlantis?
Universe one. No, I
Universe
watched
one.
Atlantis too. Primarily it's really good, but it has its filler episodes.
Like everything.
Everything.
But once again, I think that show in and of itself taught me how to
Travel
Human?
like character build and like as far as stories go.
Oh, I thought...
I mean, they tend to weave history into it, which I kind of dig.
Yeah.
Plus, they kind of make it a bit more plausible. It's not quite so magical. It's more about,
It's
Well, I mean-
a kind of magic.
To some degree, like even when they try to go ahead and talk about magic or whatever, like there's science that
behind it.
and technology that goes ahead and can corroborate all that stuff, but still the effects of it would seem like magic to somebody who doesn't understand the technology.
Which would have been us way back in the day.
Like there's these stones that they found from, I forgot, like Egypt somewhere, but obviously
And they're actually anal beads.
They're all around the freaking, all around the old world, let's say. But they've got cuneiform writing on it. And I don't know how real it is, but they went ahead and showed people holding this stone, and they'll put it up to a mirror, and the stone disappears, but so does like all the fucking flesh. Like it literally looks like a skeleton hand, just bam, bam.
X-rays.
So they put a mirror next to it. You can't see the stone. They put the stone in water. The water automatically begins to boil, like just a bunch of stuff, and it messes with the.
It's radioactive.
But yeah, it messes with all the electrical properties and all kinds of stuff. So
Okay, I got a hypothetical for all of you guys. And this is no bias, no nothing. If consciousness is real, can someone else or something else possess your consciousness, i.e. the movie Get Out, the Neuralink, or demons?
Or quantum leap.
Oh my!
Did you just say quantum leap?
Yeah,
Okay.
quantum leap.
So, you know what?
Here comes the scientist to ruin it. Go on.
No. I'm just gonna say that
Hold on, let's hear him.
I find
take the logic in.
You know what? I like that you're using my coffee cup. Does this mean we become best friends?
Yep.
No, you fucker.
Yep.
So, okay, reality. Let me ask you guys this instead. What do you guys think reality is? Now, you guys can say simulation, whatever. It's all good. What do you guys think reality is? And can we perceive reality? Are we capable of actually perceiving reality?
I think that's reality is us existing in this bubble.
Okay. What does that mean? Like that's really cute, but
No,
give me
like
some-
just I mean like it's
he
just
said cute.
I got your cute.
living in a bubble. Okay, bubble boy.
No, I mean like it's just a little slice. Like basically, I see us we're a little speck of nothing in a wide galaxy, and that's what we are right there. That's it's just like a little fluke. Any minute it's gonna.
Every rose has its. You know, I got that whole thing from Bill and Ted. Remember, like dust, wind.
Oh yeah.
We're just
Every
a little bit.
rose has its thorn.
Thorn.
So, what about you, Doyle? What do you think? Reality? Can we perceive it?
Okay, so I'm going to give you a scientific answer that actually corroborates my faith. Reality is made up of multiple dimensions, and we can only perceive X amount of dimensions. Even our color spectrum meets certain dimensions, and because we're limited to certain dimensions, we don't have perception of the deeper and higher like frequencies and things like that. So our eyes can't generate and pick up on those things. But I think that those reality for us is perception of those dimensions. So anything of a higher dimension might, like time might move slower in, like, say, the 7th or 8th dimension. Maybe things are perceived differently. Maybe those things are ethereal. We don't really have like a true understanding of those things because we haven't been able to access those other dimensions. But I mean, that also fits my description of what we call a spiritual realm. And so in the same way that science believes that there are 10 total dimensions, I think that reality is just the ones that we can understand and perceive right now.
Right. There's this really great scene in Battlestar Galactica when all of the this is the newer series where like all of like the Cylons have evolved. They've become like more human-like, and there's this particular one. He's funny enough, played by the guy who came out in Quantum Leap, the older guy.
Scott Bakula or no?
No, Al. Yeah, I forget what the
Rest in
actor's name
peace. Yeah.
Yeah, but so he goes on this tirade, and it's actually really great because in it he talks about like he gets mad at one of the other Cylons saying, or no, one of the humans saying, like, you can't perceive the world, the way the robots can, and he's mad that the creators, in this case the humans, made him that flawed because he says, I want to experience the wavelengths and the color spectrums. I want to, he goes, you gave me these frail human eyes, these frail human senses in which to experience reality in this frail way when there's so much more happening around us. Now, did you guys ever seen? There's this really interesting music experiment where you basically take a little flat board and you put like these like sand beads around it and you play a note, and the note will turn.
Yes.
Those beads into a certain shape, and those shapes are consistent, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, obviously there is a layer, and just to go with what Doyle said, there is a layer of reality that we don't experience for
Well, that's
sure.
wavelengths, though.
Right. But mind you, wavelengths are just as real in terms of how we experience the world. I mean, any theory, there's 4 popular theories of consciousness, and any of these 4 scientific theories, all of it just come down to what you perceive. Like, what can we observe? What can we feel? What can we experience? And so, when I ask about reality, I mean, dude, that is a big question. Nobody can really answer that. I mean, religions have an answer for it. Science have an answer for it. I mean, you ask like some new wave believer, and they have a different idea of reality. But when it comes down to it, I agree with you, Angel. I believe that reality is basically what you experience and what you perceive, but it's a personal thing.
Yeah.
Because nothing that I'm feeling, seeing, or experiencing is going to be the same as what George is or what you are. I mean, we can share some of these things.
I share nothing.
Someone. You know you do, man. No. You know you do. You know what?
So is consciousness like relative to time? Like if you can only perceive what you perceive, then there's only one moment where your mind can understand that moment. Like you obviously, science is actually trying to make like a mind go back in time.
You're talking about a linear consciousness.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, like a fly, they see time differently. They see the speed differently. Our movement is slow to a fly, right? Mm-hmm. Or at least that's what they claim. So I guess their consciousness, time consciousness, is different. So time passes differently for them than
so. Their
us.
damn lifespan is so damn short.
Well, yeah, you would think so. And our lifespan is short. It's like to a tortoise.
Well, yeah, but that's
tortoise that you guys.
That's interesting. I wonder what they feel.
Young.
That's whale.
No, that's more whale.
Okay.
Okay, there. What is it? Finding Dory.
You know, that's funny because my next question was, do animals have consciousness?
Yeah.
Do you think so?
I think they do.
Wait, okay. So here's a good question because I know this is going to get ethical.
They don't have souls.
Are we getting to the point where, like, if consciousness is just what you can perceive and then we create something like an AI, does that mean that an AI has a consciousness? Can we count
an
that?
AI can have consciousness,
a
but it
digital
won't
consciousness.
have soul. But then again, you have heard of these things called the ghost in the machine.
Sure.
Yeah.
But then if we're basing a lot of our laws based on those things that are conscious, then do we extend human rights to consciousness?
No.
Because essentially that's what...
Not really.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, with this new generation, they'll say yes. It can
It feels.
Yeah, but it's not going to happen.
What do you mean it's not going to happen?
It's not
They're
gonna
already
happen.
It
considering
basically
it.
already happened over in, what is it, Iraq or Iran somewhere where they have that
android they made, robot or whatever, they went ahead and gave it citizenship.
Yeah, exactly.
Citizenship?
Yeah, they did.
I don't want to live in this planet anymore, you guys. It's official.
I, for one, welcome our new robot overlords.
Be like, well, good luck getting out. We have a dome over it. It's flat.
That was perfect.
No, they're ignorant. That's ignorant.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, nothing. I got nothing. Go ahead.
I got nothing.
George, you need to drop one flat.
Enrique, let's start our own podcast.
What do you guys think about that? All the series that have come out where where they have the idea of where you can upload your consciousness.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen those?
Well,
there's a few of them that have come out.
That's completely plausible because, like I said, everything it makes sense in the sense of like you're a biological computer, so you can upload your consciousness. You just lose the soul part of you. So, however dark your consciousness is, the thoughts that you have, it'll be right there, ready to enact without the soul being able to act as that buffer, saying like, "Nah, that's messed up."
I'm about to piss off Enrique because I want to make a pop culture reference, but I'm watching Picard right now, the last season, and in the series, Picard basically died on season 1. He died at the end of it.
Spoiler alert!
And they're in season 4. It's the final season. I haven't seen it. Fuck y'all. So if he dies and they actually upload his consciousness to a positronic body. So now he has a like an android. It still degenerates like a human body, but it's positronic. It's not really, human form. So they're now playing with that idea in sci-fi where it's like, okay, yeah, you're going to transfer your consciousness into another. But I know why they did it, because if ever Patrick Stewart decides I don't want to do Picard no more, they can say, oh, we uploaded you to a new body, but we had to change you to this black woman from Kansas, and then all of a sudden Picard is now Karen.
So art imitates life sometimes, and life imitates art sometimes, and so this is a real technology that they're trying to develop. I have so many.
It's a circle.
Yeah, I have so many Science Weekly articles on them trying to transfer human consciousness, and they actually they successfully transferred a human head to a new body.
I don't remember.
I think they were successful for 10 minutes, and then I think the body lost. It was a paraplegic, and they took the head off of I don't know if it was successful or not.
Like a Lego.
Give it a new shirt.
Give it a new shirt. I'm a cop now. I'm a fireman.
Well, I mean, they were doing that with dogs.
So, I love the pop culture reference. It's easy to sort of understand things through the pop culture. I make them all the time. One of the ones did you watch Invincible?
Yes.
Right. Did you like it?
Yeah.
Great cartoon, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember Robot?
Yeah.
Okay, so remember at some point he ends up cloning himself, right? Yeah. Or rather,
no, he transfers to another body.
Right, but essentially it's a clone of his brain. However, it's a new body, right? Mm-hmm. And so basically, at some point he says, the two have this really great moment where one of them says, you know what? You know that I'm not you. You know that when I die, I'm experiencing different. And both of these two guys look at each other and says, I know, I wish it wasn't that way. Basically, it's this really great kind of way to model the fact that when you pass a conscious from another, you're not necessarily passing a soul, because consciousness is something that only an individual brain has. So to your example, Picard, is that really Picard? I would argue that it isn't. I would say that it's not him.
In this season, they're they're saying, oh no, that's him, and then they're actually there's a whole heist thing where they have to steal his old body because the bad guys want it, so they have his old body and he's in the room, and I don't fucking know. I just know that it's fun to watch.
With the consciousness, it's one of those things. I was watching Black Mirror, and of course Black Mirror always has some sort of ethical conundrum, right? And so they took a consciousness, they transferred it, and when they transferred it, they basically put it through this extreme interrogation, and then they broke the consciousness, the copy, because it had all the same memories as the individual. And then fast forward, spoiler alert, but I'm not going to tell you which episode, the consciousness confessed to the crime that this person had done, and then they went back to reality where the real person was at, and they went and they arrested him. And so I was like, man, that's messed up. Like, but do you think that should be ethical? Because it is a consciousness. And so that consciousness did nothing. It's a copy, you know. And so they were torturing this poor consciousness for like...
Copied the consciousness and then went and performed illegal interrogation on it because there were no laws against it in order to get a confession.
Precisely. And because it's just the consciousness, they transferred it to like an AI, and they tortured the AI and asked the AI questions until it confessed. And then they went back to the actual human being, and then they went and they said, hey, we know that you did this, and we have all the evidence, and we have all the facts and stuff. And then the person basically was like, I can't deny any of that. And they went and found all the evidence they needed. And
so I missed the part. Is this like an actual thing that happened, or was it a movie?
This is Black Mirror.
Wow.
Pay attention. Focus.
I'm sorry. Like I'm trying to like tune out whenever Angel tries to derail the conversation.
I haven't derailed anything. I'm actually like interesting. But that's different. That's different. That's keeping the jaw active.
And so
he's railing his mouth.
I have to like a boa. You know.
I find that very interesting. That's a really cool idea. So, but yeah, is it illegal? I mean,
there was nothing against it at that point. Like, have you guys ever seen Altered Carbon? The show, it got canceled after 2 seasons, but it's basically the premise where you basically replace the bodies of people, just like changing clothes. And there's like this Japanese character, I think it's like the main character. He gets killed, but he gets replaced with this like white Caucasian guy, and it's him with his whole memories and everything. And then at the end of that season, he dies, and then he becomes what's his name? Anthony Mackie. And then Anthony Mackie takes over for the last season.
If I would transfer consciousness,
so he was Anthony Mackie right now. Yeah,
he's a national treasure.
He's a national treasure. I second that national treasure.
I haven't
seen that interview. He's like, "Go make me a sandwich."
Yeah.
Oh hell yeah, I saw that. That's yeah.
If somebody breaks into the house and something's going on, you want me to go down there, right? You right? All right. Well, go make Daddy a sandwich.
Yeah, I totally saw it. That was actually. I mean, he made a really interesting point. I have to say. I don't know that we need to put all the macho behind it, but he's made a good point. Each of us have our space.
Everybody, we all have our roles.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Andrew Tate. So back to consciousness.
So I got another one from Black Mirror because taking it a step further, if you. Damn you! Taking it a step further, if you can torture a consciousness to get a confession for like rape and murder and things like that, there is another episode of Black Mirror where basically they create a consciousness, a copy of a human mind, and then they turn it into like an Alexa. And it was because that consciousness would know your ins and outs, your daily routine, all the things you like, and with it being able to control everything, it would have totally like known you, and so it would have been able to adapt to all your needs, right? So going even further than that, they then found that there's an episode where this guy was on death row, and it was for a crime he later got like acquitted from. But he was on death row, and they go to him and they say, hey, look, we want to do this experiment. And if you sign, you know, like you won't be free, but we'll make sure that your family is taken care of. So, of course, he signs and then he goes. And what they do is they transfer his consciousness into this like virtual prison. And so his body is deceased now, right? But his consciousness is still alive and it's perceived. And so then what they do is they put it in like a torture situation where they have people show up and people pull the lever of like him being electrocuted, and then they reset his consciousness back to a point right before.
Yeah, I think I saw that one.
Yeah, that's the Black Museum episode. And this conundrum is one of the deeper questions of consciousness, because his consciousness is tortured for an eternity that he signed over permission and rights. And it's his daughter in the episode that goes to find out what happened to her dad, and she finds her dad being constantly tortured. Now, to the audience, to the people who were torturing, they didn't realize that this was an actual human being and that this person existed. They went and they were like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. And they would actually get a keychain with this person's consciousness actively like being tortured that they would get to carry around as a souvenir and they get to walk away with.
I got another Black Mirror one for you that also has something to do with consciousness. There's one episode where it starts off where it's a Star Trek like parody kind of thing, and with the big, you know, the uniforms on the
Costumes,
sets and all of that
the
stuff.
clone one?
And it's like basically the guy programmed his coworkers into this scenario on his PC where they're the consciousness. It's basically the identity of these living people, and they think they're alive, but they realize they're just programs. They're not real, but they have a consciousness like a human being. And this guy basically plays out these sick fantasies on them when he comes back from work because of how his day went. If he had the hots for one of the
Kristen Melody, the one who came out on How I Met Your Mother in the last season.
Yeah,
she played one of the coworkers, and she's like the main one because I guess like the spoiler is that she ends up being a construct of this fantasy that he created, right?
Yeah, that's the whole spoiler thing.
I think the takeaway from that is like, is it wrong what he did? And to the point of the Doyle's making, I mean, Doyle. No, it just, it's. Remember we had the discussion recently about deepfakes, right? Where this guy, this streamer, Twitch streamer, basically took all his close friends, who are also really famous Twitch streamers, and basically created deepfakes of them having sex. So
for the record, I'm doing that to all of y'all.
God damn it!
It's gonna be awesome.
I'm gonna go to sleep.
George, I'm gonna give you like big breasts. It's gonna be pretty weird. Anyways, go on.
Are they gonna be round or flat?
I don't know. Depends. They're gonna be flat.
Let it sink in there, buddy. Let it sink in there. Yeah.
Big flat. Anyways, I'm sorry.
I quit.
I'm out the door with you, buddy. No, shit. I forgot my point. Oh yeah, no. The Twitch streamer dude. He basically did he violate these women? And that's the question. Yeah, I think most of us can agree that he did.
Wholeheartedly, yes.
Yeah, and mind you, he's really close with a lot of these girls, and some of them are married. So I mean, can you imagine the conversation he had to have with these people afterwards?
Hey man, I'm sorry, man. I'm a freak.
But then the question is like, well, they're just fake, they're not real. Like, it's like,
but you want it to be real. If you actually went through the process of having these generated for you, that means come on.
Okay, so this is the dangers of science. Science has no limits into its exception with like law, right? And I have to go back to what George was saying, like consciousness minus the soul, right? So like if you don't quantify something as having a soul, then I mean technically the AI has a consciousness, and so we would have to extend certain rights to the AI consciousness. We would have to extend certain rights to the copied clone consciousness. I think there was a concept where they were able to get the DNA off of something and then clone the consciousness from it. So like it'd be like if they took my coffee mug and then they wiped it and they got the DNA off of my coffee mug.
I mean, that's
and then
the next
copied
step.
me. Yeah, and then copied me, and then because it doesn't have laws, they could violate it and do whatever they wanted to. So
yeah, but a copy of a copy of a copy, you're going to be a little less each time. You're going to be like,
maybe. I mean, sure, but if they perfected it,
but like chump.
Me bad.
Speaking of copies of a copies, did you guys see that they took
our shirts and stole them in China?
What?
I'm just kidding. That's a joke.
China. I was already getting scared. Like, what?
Chinaman?
We're famous in China.
They took. We're large in China. They took woolly mammoth DNA and they made a woolly mammoth meatball. Have you guys seen this?
Oh yeah. I love the quote from the scientist. He's like, "Have you eaten it?" It's like, "No, of course we have not eaten it.
Not yet."
Meatwad.
Beginning of meatwad.
Yeah, that's the beginning.
Darkness for me.
Reference.
Don't you talk ugly to me. No, these are the questions of like consciousness, because without that, conversation and discussion, there's going to be laws that don't apply, and so someone can easily make a clone of you and then start violating it and raping it with the technology.
Why you go straight to that?
It would be a flawed clone, though, right? Because really, I think you would have to really define where consciousness is stored, right? So I think there's the assumption that maybe in your brain, right?
The blue hole.
This is where everything is, right? In our brain.
That's the central
computing.
Right, but then you think about it.
It's the heart.
there have been cases where people give organ transplants. Now, we don't transplant brains, of course. We transplant all kinds of other things. And people that get new organs have gained new skills. There's been many that have gained personality traits.
New masturbation ratios.
So I argue that if we start taking just everything from the brain, no matter what you do, we will be forever flawed. Because
I've seen RoboCop.
To me that there are definitely connections between the other organs in our body that somehow create the person that we are.
Or that horror movie Body Parts. Remember that one? Where the guy gets his arm amputated and then he has to get it replaced by that convict, that serial killer, and then it becomes a serial killer and he's like, oh, God.
Or that episode of The Simpsons where he gets the wig.
Do you remember? I don't know. Maybe it's not the same thing, but do you remember the movie? The one
Get Out.
No. It's where the guy. It's a horror movie where the guy gets electrified and
Shocker.
That's the one, right? And then he's like consciousness gets like transferred
into the wires.
Yeah. So
Shocker.
You know what? All I remember that was the trailer for the movie having "No More Mr. Nice Guy."
Yeah, I remember that movie.
I may be wrong on this because I haven't seen it since I was a kid. But wasn't the guy who played the villain, the Shocker, as they call it, wasn't that Skinner from X-Files?
Shoot, I think it was. Yes, it was. Yeah, it was.
Interesting.
So, okay, Stephanie actually made a really interesting point about like where is consciousness stored. I mean, you ask any scientist, they'll probably just say, well, that's the question. Like, it's either between the brain,
in the belly button.
I thought you said the blue hole. Is that
it's
the blue hole?
Okay, it's in the asshole. And thus permeates the entire body.
Thank you, Bane.
So is it but mind you, that's the deep question. Like, what is consciousness? I mean, we have to have like a shared
consciousness.
Now you're getting into the singularity where we all meld one consciousness into one central place, and then is it one consciousness or is it multiple?
Well, your body can create 8 ohms of electricity by itself, and you have a field. And when you're in close proximity to other people, you end up sharing fields. And why people say stay out of my bubble, because you literally do have a field.
Is that why you give me static shock, George?
It probably.
You know what?
My bubble's trying to get away from yours.
It absolutely.
Flat bubble?
It absolutely makes sense. Because have you ever been on the phone getting ready to call someone, and then all of a sudden they call you first?
Yeah.
It is totally like their consciousness. I call them brain text, but I think it's like our consciousness can connect to each other on a different level.
What about gaze awareness?
What?
Gaze awareness.
Oh, yeah. Like someone's looking at you from across the room.
You can feel it.
Yeah,
that's fucking creepy as hell.
Enunciate, bro.
I thought you said gaze awareness. I was like, we're here. What are you talking about?
So I think the gaze awareness goes back to the
primordial. Isn't it like an instinct from back in the days, like when we were like?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so like
aware of our surroundings.
There's like 4 theories of consciousness: higher order, the hierarchy. One called global space, or workspace, and the other one called integrated information, and one called predictive processing. I think the predictive processing more pertains to like what we see when we're not looking. So if somebody's looking at you, I think that we can sense it. I think the question is like, for example, if somebody's behind you and you can feel them looking at you and you turn around, like, how do you know that? Like, what sort of like predictions around you do you know that makes you like react to it?
Projecting energy towards you and looking at you, and your field is picking up that energy.
Right. I mean, that's a good kind of, that's kind of a pseudoscience. Kudos. It's a pseudoscience.
There's a disturbance
sort of
in the force.
But I think there might be some truth, at least in the sense of like what we're feeling, and you want to call it energy, or you just want to call it like, you want to call it instinct. I mean, I think maybe those 2 things are interchangeable.
But that's also where people say like, oh, religion and faith is nonsense. But some of those definitions and explanation in a scientific world, we would call it a pseudoscience. But in a faith-based understanding of it, our spirit perceives things that we don't. And so it could be like you're perceiving something, like I said earlier, on a higher dimension. So like your spirit is got spiritual awareness on like dimension 6, and so that's what you're actually picking up on. And I think that our spirits actually speak to each other in a different language. It's like when 2 guys get together in a room and then like they nod and they know exactly what each other are on the same wavelength. But you try the same thing like with your wife and you nod at her and she's like, what's your problem? And you're like,
well, that's because women communicate differently than men.
Sure, absolutely. But I mean, I think it has to do with that wavelength that we can be on.
A different connection with a friend versus with your partner.
Sure, I mean that's but I've also had female friends that like.
It also has a lot to do with the time you spend with that friend, right? Because you may nod at some guy you see at the bar that you've never met, and he may have no idea what you're doing.
That's true. Right. I mean, it definitely.
I wink at the men at the bar.
Do you?
Yeah,
you're at the wrong bar.
It's the Blue Oyster.
He also lactates. I've seen it.
Isn't that the Blue Oyster? No, isn't that there?
When you see that sign that says bears only, they're not talking about Yogi.
Oh, Dad. So, mind blown.
Yeah, stop taking a picnic basket to the club, sir.
That's not the only thing they want blown.
Oh my.
Bears and otters. Where did the conversation go, you guys?
In the hole, in the blue hole.
Yeah, that killed me.
That just went so far off of consciousness.
Wow, the bear. I mean,
no, the gaze of awareness is something that it's funny because that's something that I wanted to talk about before, and it kind of gets inclined into this. It gets torn in. It's pretty interesting.
Was it you that said about being something that we've evolved? Like, because like it's interesting. We have these muscles in our ears that we don't use anymore. Yeah. And the idea was that those muscles used to allow us to do what both the
to
cats,
listen.
Yeah,
like cats do it. They basically trait. Yeah.
So like we have like these vestigial traits in our body. That sort of show that at some point we had these instincts, or at least these extra sensors. That allowed us to perceive the world the way animals do.
Yeah. So we're not evolving; we're devolving.
I mean, that depends on your definition.
Yeah, it depends on your point of view.
I mean, if consciousness...
I mean, if you vote for Trump, you're devolving.
I mean, yeah, for real. If consciousness is like...
That's fake news.
If consciousness is like the next level of like what animals are becoming, meaning where like this very difficult to define thing, but we're essentially how we interact with the world, and I would say we're evolving, right? I mean, because to answer the question earlier, do animals have consciousness? I don't think they have consciousness in the way that we do. They perceive the world. They have like sort of the base level requirements for consciousness, but the things that they miss is a way to define the world, articulate it, and then and to label it, right? Labeling is everything. I mean, I think part of the reason why we're having so much trouble with discourse in our life is because we're no longer allowed to define things anymore, at least not in any way that we can all agree on. It's the reason why people are constantly fighting. And so it's a battle that we're having. I mean, just recently, I used to have this like despair about the whole thing, but I'm starting to feel a little bit better about the idea that where we're having this these arguments about what is this, what is that, what is whatever definitions, because I think ultimately we're going to get there.
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me.
We can't even
don't hurt me.
We can't even all agree anymore on what a woman is. So
right, but I think it's a level, it's a step level into defining it, and then what's next.
You're a woman, George.
I think to George's point, I think with what we are defining, sometimes we take it too far. Some things like don't necessarily need to be labeled, and we've gone so far as to try to label everything that it's like diluted like the simplicity of enjoyment of life. And I think this is why smart people are so much less happy than what they would say a dumb person is. Ignorance is bliss. We've heard these phrases for life, and the thing about it is that like in so many instances, in a way, like the smarter you get, you find like people are depressed when they get smarter. Intelligence is not a good thing. We learned that from the Bible. They ate from the tree, and then all the bad stuff happened, right? And so in the same regard, like you can over label and you can over complicate life, and you can just make it more than it's supposed to be.
Well, I don't know. My father was a genius. He was a very happy man. So I don't know that I would say that they're depressed. I think they look at life very differently than most humans do. But at this point, our generation, I think, is probably very different from the newer generation. They seem to want to, like you were saying, label everything, which to me is annoying. I would rather not label it.
No,
why do you
ignorant.
need to know what my
That's
sexual
ignorant.
preference is, and why do I need to be pan, or you know what I mean? Why does it matter? Why do you need to have a word of who I sleep with? You know what I mean?
And not only to create it for themselves, but to impose it upon you.
Right.
So I think
we're all humans.
I think ultimately what we should probably talk about as a group here just is I know that we've talked about it on sometimes about depression and what makes what makes it happen, because I think that's a completely different discussion. But ultimately, you said that smart people are more depressed. I don't know that that's true. I don't think the statistics bear that out, but I do.
Yeah,
think,
I'm an idiot and I'm depressed. So
yeah, I think I think we're going through a phase, and it's going to probably be more like an epoch. It's going to take like 10, 20 years before we sort of kind of realign, because I don't think this is any different than what was happening in the 60s, where people were redefining what relationships are, redefining what what's appropriate in terms of social norms. I think it's always going to happen, and we're just going through that now.
I agree, and I think that there is a level of like redefining and like bringing things up to like date that we need, but then it does always seem to go too far. There are times where, like for instance, like I said on many occasions, I agreed with the BLM when they first announced their let's reform the police. All right, I get that. I understand that. And then they started going like, oh, well, all white people are evil. I was like, hold up. You guys went too far. This just went from
give
one
me all
thing.
your money. Wait, hold on.
Yeah, it went from one thing to the next, and then you find out all the...
And then the founders are buying multi-million-dollar houses.
And it's not about like one particular group, but it's like when you start off with something simple, it is about the simplicity of what it is. And the more convoluted and complex you try to make it, you just lose the point. And so... our consciousness can't take that, and we just need to simplify
give peace
life.
a chance, love each other, and remember, George, say goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody, from this flat Earth.
Enrique and Steph.
Bye.
Steph Throat.
Ahoy, hoy. Oh, the wrong one.
Enrique.
Mahalo.
The Doyle.
Go to www.ouchcast.com and make sure to buy a t-shirt, because we have some awesome shirts there that you can represent.
Oh, so cute.
Okay. I ain't doing that. Angel promised.
I can tell you right now that Angel looks like he'd be a pro at it. So please, let's put that on.
My.
That old banana gobbler.
Also, don't forget to follow us on Patreon, because the Patreon is where we just did this incredible ouchie called Ginge Snaps.
No, it's gingivitis.
I told you.
I said ginger.
Ginger
We'll talk
snaps.
after this.
Okay.
I vote for gingers are sexy. That's a better title.
I don't like to lie, so I'm going to put gingivitis on there.
Whatever,
Okay.
they're really hot redheads.
I'm married. I can't say that.
I can tell you right now, when you first proposed gingivitis, I started cracking up. I was like driving, and then you said like the gingivitis episode. I was like, that's got to be the name.
That's got to be it.
The ginger snap. No?
Red tampon. Okay, so
I like cookies, so ginger snap.
hope you guys had a good one, and do all the things that Doyle said. Don't listen to George. Enrique sometimes has some points. And remember, never make eye contact while eating a banana, unless you're into that kind of thing. Then woohoo!